Howard Stern. Shock jock Howard Stern has just made headlines for leaving his house for the first time in 2 years. First time in 2 years. Do you know why? COVID. This is real. I didn't believe this at first. Howard Stern had not left his house for 2 years. He's always been a germaphobe, and he is just deathly, neurotically afraid of getting COVID. And so finally, some of his celebrity friends coaxed him out. He talked about this on his show. He said, I really had an exhausting weekend, emotionally, physically. For the first time in 2 years, I ventured out of the house. It was too much for me. It was too much. I haven't been out in 2 years. He said Jimmy Kimmel had been urging him to come out. He said Kimmel came over to visit him, and Stern has been demanding that whoever visits him take COVID tests before they come into the house. And Howard Stern's wife wanted to leave, but Howard said, no. He said, I said to my wife before this dinner, I don't want to go. I'm in a panic. I don't want to get COVID. He said, F it. I know I'm being a wuss. I know I'm cleaning up the language a little. But for me, COVID is still going on and I haven't left my house. I can't figure out how to integrate myself. I've been locked up so long and I haven't gotten COVID. I'm afraid I'll be the one a-hole who gets COVID and I'll die. Even though people don't seem to be dying that much anymore, he's still so afraid. I know people like this. I have friends and relatives who still really don't eat inside restaurants. They'll try to eat outside, even if it's blistering hot, even if it's freezing cold. They just don't. They're so neurotically afraid of COVID. And it's the same thing. It's the same impulse Howard Stern is experiencing that the millennials who want to buy the adult Happy Meal are experiencing. It's just the refusal to accept life as it is, that you're born and you live and you die. And time moves on, and we live in time and space, and you don't get to freeze time forever, and circumstances change, people get sick, and time moves on, and you got to make good use of your time. Think about Howard Stern. Oh my gosh, he's lost 2 years of his life. 2 years of it. Let's say Howard Stern lives to 90 years old. He'll really have lived for 88 years, right? Those 2 years, he's been hunkered down like a complete maniac. And I think about this with the overgrown children, millennials, who still want to, who are still shocked if they pay their own cell phone plan, which is infrequent because a lot of them are on their family cell phone plans. But if they pay their own bills, every now and again, they'll say, I'm adulting, as though they deserve a cookie for doing things that 30-year-olds are expected to do. No, and you just think about, okay, they live to be 90 years old, but emotionally they're still 16. That's sad. They've missed a lot of their life. Yeah, they've missed the hard parts and the suffering and the prospect of sickness and the risk of death even. They've missed those things because they've been so coddled and they've been so cautious and they've been so afraid to actually live. But they miss life too. That's what they've also missed. That's not good. We need to return to some semblance of normal. Okay, we need to recognize sickness happens, suffering happens. It's okay. Responsibilities happen. You're not going to get to sleep as much when you get married and have kids. You have to work a little harder. You're going to have to make a little bit more money. Okay, that's fine. You're going to die someday. That's true. That's the way it is. Why would you live in constant fear of that? If you live, this is a trick of the devil, but if you live constantly harping on the past, whether out of anxiety or out of nostalgia, or if you live on the future and trying to protect that future so you never get sick and you never die or anything, you completely miss the present, which is the only place where you can actually live. You only live in the present. So either way, you spend all your life thinking about the past, daydreaming about the future. You're not living in the present. Grow up. Not you. You know what you're doing. But these crazy people out there, they got to grow up. Speaking of returning to normal, I mentioned yesterday that Elon Musk looks like he's going to actually be buying Twitter. What that means is the only thing that matters. Forget about we can voice our views, we conservatives finally have a shot. Forget about our follower counts. It means that Trump can return. Elon Musk has already said, I think banning Trump was a mistake because it alienated a large part of the country and did not ultimately result in Donald Trump not having a voice. He said the decision was morally bad. So it's not just that it was tactically sort of bad. He said it's morally bad. And he says that he would reverse the permanent ban. Now, this is complicated because Trump has said that even if the ban is lifted, he won't go back to Twitter. He'll remain on his own platform, which is Truth Social. And presumably, when he signed on to Truth Social, it included some provisions in the contract that say he can't go back to Twitter or something, right? Because that would really gut Truth Social, and Trump doesn't want to do that. So what's he going to do? He's in a really tough position right now. This is one of the toughest political positions Trump is in. The only one that's tougher is the COVID vaccines, because Donald Trump did allow Fauci to have more of a platform. Trump did not reopen the country after Easter, as he had sort of dangled out there that he could, which I think would have been amazing. He did get us the vaccines, which he has gotten a lot of credit for, but the vaccines have a lot of problems. And then there were vaccine mandates, not because of Trump. Trump didn't want to mandate them, but then the mandates came in later. And so Trump is in this tough position where a lot of his base, myself included, hates the lockdowns and doesn't like the vaccines. And he was one of the defenders of the vaccines, albeit not the mandate. So that's a tricky one for him to navigate. And then this one is tricky for him to navigate, because if he refuses to get back on Twitter, it looks like he's just privileging his private business interests over his political life, or it could look that way. And he would be limiting his reach, because people just don't use Truth Social. The only reason people use Truth Social is to see what Trump is saying, and then they share it to other social media platforms. So I read a bunch of Truth Social posts, but I just really read what Trump writes, because I'm just interested in what he has to say. So that's what happens if he just stays on Truth Social. But if he goes over to Twitter, one, it guts Truth Social, right? So this company just goes away. And two, it might be seen as though he's going back and playing by their rules. He said he wouldn't do it, and then he did it anyway. Now, where do I come down on this? I want him to have his Twitter again. He should do it. They don't want him to have Twitter. He will have a much broader reach if he's on Twitter. I want him to go back on Twitter. I think it is likely to help him and his prospects in 2024, which are still very, very strong. He's atop the heap by a long shot. But especially in Florida, DeSantis now has a lead over Trump in a prospective 2024 presidential race. I think in the middle of the country, Trump is still just so much stronger and better known than DeSantis is. DeSantis just hasn't been around that long. Obviously doesn't have the name recognition that goes along with being a celebrity for 40 years and the president for one term. But still, if you're Trump, you got to be a little worried about that. And so, and then the most important reason I think Trump should go back on Twitter, I would find it very entertaining. I would love that. I would love it. I would get to retweet it a lot. And so I strongly encourage him to do that. Okay, the rest of the show is continuing now. You do not want to miss it. We've got fake headlines. We've got the real headlines from the week. There's one fake headline in there. The producers have sent these to me. You have to guess, and then I have to guess which the fake headline is. I've been on a roll so far. We will see how it is going over at the member block. See you there.